Welcome back to What's Hockey. We're almost in the postseason, but as we jump into around that hockey, there was a massive brawl, good old
Huge.
5-on-5 fight between New York and
Eight
New Jersey.
ejections.
8 ejections. Keaton, why don't you continue giving us some background on that?
Well, pretty much right as the puck dropped, everyone else's gloves dropped, and they got into a brawl. It was pretty crazy. Matt Rempe was pretty much the center of that. He has played, 3 games against the Devils this year, and has like 5 minutes time on ice and 47 minutes in the penalty box. So,
Ejected from all three.
yeah, he's he's a wild player, but I don't know if you see the video. Literally everyone but the refs are getting into it. They love it, so it's great to see. But at the same time, it's like you got to take the delay of game and all that other stuff, and it's just like, all right, let's just get to playing,
The fans do love it, though. I know.
Oh, hell
yeah, Ranger fans, they're all over it, man. Buying Rempe jerseys. I mean, and again, it's against New Jersey, right? So it's a close rival right there, right next to you.
They hate each other.
And hey, the Rangers are going to the playoffs. You can't really fight in the playoffs. You can't afford to be suspended. You'll screw your team.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the
You might as well just get it out of the way.
Yeah. Get all that aggression
And
out.
against the Devils are already eliminated. You just don't really care. And I think they probably won that game too. So, I mean, what do the Rangers have to lose, right? So,
right. Man, Rempe, 3 suspensions or 3 ejections in the second game. He gets suspended for 4 games following an elbow to the head he did. This dude's an animal. I kind of respect it at the same time.
He's a rookie too, so
he's a rookie. He's 21 years old.
See a lot of that hockey.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I kind of respect it, and then at the same time, I'm like, bro, just stay on the ice. But no, I mean, if he's not a key cog, then
he's just there to fight.
Whatever.
Why not?
He's a goon. But yeah, so that was entertaining to see immediately as soon as the or puck is dropped.
Oh, yeah, it was great.
Squaring up. But
go to town.
Okay. Going from the fight between New York and New Jersey to the fight for the final wild card spot. Keaton, what you got on that?
It's pretty disappointing if you're a Red Wings fan. On Tuesday, we lost to the Capitals, so we've lost a lot of ground. We immediately got eliminated from the playoff spot as of that day. So right now it's the Islanders in third for Metro and the Capitals for that second wild card spot. But the Penguins are right there. The Red Wings are right there. Technically, the Flyers can get in there, but I think it was the day before yesterday they lost to the Canadiens 9-3. So I'm not really holding my hopes up for the Flyers. But hey, they could still technically win it. Everywhere else pretty much solidified. It's just that third spot in Metro and the last wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. I'm hoping, of course, the Red Wings get there, but it just doesn't really depend on specifically our team. So got to see what the Capitals do, got to see what the Islanders do, got to see what the Penguins do, and I guess even the Flyers. But yeah, pretty tight race. Hoping to eke out a victory. We're only 1 point out of the playoffs technically, so it's anybody's game. Every team has 78 games except for the Flyers. They got 79, but again, they suck. So,
I mean, right now the concern for the Red Wings is that the Islanders get knocked out of their guaranteed third playoff spot, the third playoff spot in their division, and either Washington or Pittsburgh, who y'all played tonight, who the Red Wings play tonight, if they overtake the Islanders, that puts y'all in a pretty tough hole for that second wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. So, I mean, it's a big one again tonight.
And, every other team seems to be playing for the third spot in the Metro as well, and we're the only team fighting for that last wild card spot because we can't really do any better than that. So we got Toronto, Florida, Boston, and Tampa Bay already guaranteed in the playoffs. So we're literally just fighting for that last spot. So, I mean, we have a lot worse of a chance technically to make it, but I mean, it just honestly depends on how the Islanders handle it, how the Capitals handle it, and what the Penguins do.
Yeah, and I mean, so right now the Capitals, hold their own destiny. The thing is, though, they don't have easy games for these final four. They're on the road against the Sabres, who just gave the Stars a pretty good game, and then they're going to go ahead and host the Lightning and the Bruins, which, man, I'll say this: there's a chance that those teams, bring in younger players to fill their lines to try to keep the Stars healthy, and so there's a chance the Capitals go against a weakened Lightning team on that road trip. But it's not a walk in the park for them, man. And y'all do have a chance, being that outside the Penguins are the big game tonight. Y'all got to win that one. But then you host, you'll be traveling to Toronto to take on the Maple Leafs. Then y'all host the Montreal Canadiens, and then travel to the Canadiens the very next day to close out the season. And Canadiens being last in their division, we would normally say like that's an easy win. Now, what they just did to Philadelphia, maybe you can't take it for granted and
completely discount them.
Yeah, man. Like, and y'all are playing for the playoffs. Like, you have
lackadaisical.
Yes. So I mean, it's not in y'all's hands, but it definitely is not over. I mean, heck, even if y'all go to OT and lose tonight, but the Caps lose, you do gain a point on the Caps. Now you don't need the Penguins getting 2 points, but I mean, it's not over. But yes, tonight, Thursday night, it's going to be a massive game for y'all, the Red Wings, against the Penguins.
Yeah, and not only that, the Islanders have a pretty decent schedule. They play the Montreal tonight, Canadiens. Then they play Rangers on Saturday. They play the Devils on Monday, and then finish the season off at Pittsburgh. So they've got a few interesting games, being the Devils. Even though they've been eliminated, they're still a decent team. They're not the worst team in the NHL. So, I mean, they could probably still lose.
We talked about, players don't get their season they can't make the playoffs, but those players have pride. Yeah. They're going to be fighting for contract
seasons and stuff. Yeah.
So they're definitely going to try to show out as best they can.
Yeah. And I know the Devils have the Hughes brothers, and they're pretty solid, family. And they've got the connection, et cetera. But, I mean, of course they'll lose games, but that's an interesting one to see, especially the, rematch, so to speak, because they beat the Rangers on Tuesday, this past Tuesday, 4-2, and they'll play again on Saturday. So we'll see what the Rangers do, if they're going to play a little bit harder or something along those lines. Because I mean, Rangers are a pretty good hockey team. So I think they're still in the lead of the whole thing as far as points are concerned. They might be the only one that's won 10 plus
season. Yeah. The Stars.
I forgot what that's called. Is it President's Trophy or something like that?
Oh, I should know, but I
think it's called the President's Trophy, whereas the NHL team with the most points is.
Yes, this is what's hockey, not this is hockey. So I'm not going to.
Yep. President's Trophy is award presented to the team that finishes with the most points during the regular season. So, Rangers are in line to win that President's Trophy for now. We'll see what happens. I think the Stars are a close second. They're 109 or something like that.
We're at 109 right now, 1 point behind them.
So, it'll be interesting to see who wins that President's Trophy. But, that last wild card spot, as well as the third place in Metro, is going to be an interesting fight to watch for the last 4, maybe 5 games, depending on who your team is. Because I think the Oilers still have 5. But, and speaking of the Oilers, they look pretty hot. Connor McDavid was out with an injury, and they still beat the Golden Knights 5-1. So they really stepped up. I think it was last night. So, I mean, it's going to be a tough team to beat in the playoffs, that's for sure. The Canucks, they lose to the Coyotes in the same night, which is kind of wild. But, the Canucks are still technically in the playoffs anyway, so it doesn't technically matter. But,
Well, the interesting
like
thing
we've probably already said, it's just you got to stay hot. But what were you going to say?
Well, on that Western side, so we know that the Eastern side is where the real drama is for that final playoff spot. In the Western side, you basically have the Kings and the Golden Knights battling out for that third division playoff spot or the second wild card. And with Vegas's loss last night, I mean, the Kings just overtook them for that third playoff spot.
Because they're only 1 point behind.
They're only 1 point behind. There's they each have.
And I think the Knights might even have the tie-off winner, tiebreaker. There you go.
What's the first tiebreaker again? I always forget that.
I don't know, dude, but I just assumed that they would be.
Well, because I know the Kings have more. They have a better point differential, but I don't know what. Give me 1 second. I should have known this or had it on hand. Games won. Okay,
so maybe it is the point differential. I don't know.
It would go to the greater number of games won, excluding games won in overtime. Wait, that's during the regular season. Hold on, guy. No, that's right. I think.
So I guess right now the Knights have 42-41. So I guess if that is the tiebreaker, then that would be the tiebreaker.
Do you know how much of those were won in overtime?
Well, no, I'm looking at specifically wins, not OTs.
Regardless, my main point, though, was essentially to say that the Knights, if they do end up being that second wild card team, that is not a welcome sight for either. I mean,
either
way.
Avalanche
could technically pass us in the standings because they could get 6 more and we do nothing. And Vancouver could pass us, but dude, facing them in the first round is not a reward. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've talked about the Kings being kind of subpar, but I mean, their differential is still pretty up there. They're still a pretty decent team. I mean, they've got talent, so they're going to be a pretty scary team regardless. But they're just kind of a weird team that they just lose randomly.
Well, that's the thing is they went through a pretty bad streak a little bit after the deadline, but I mean, and they lost last night, 2 nights ago to the Ducks, but they do beat the Canucks. They get a win against the Sharks. They beat the Kraken. They lose to the Jets. They're kind of all over the place, but that's a team that I would be begging to play as the Stars. Like, I don't fear that team. The Golden Knights, there's something about them, man. Like, their first year in existence, did they go to the Stanley Cup and lose, or did they go to just the conference finals? I forget. But that last year they win the whole thing, and they have a good roster.
They've only been in the league for like a few years, right? Like maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah. They're extremely new, actually, and so that's a team that. It seems since their inception, they've just won in the playoffs. They win games. They've got a good roster. They added to it during the trade deadline. So, oh boy, that is not a reward you want to see in the first round of the playoffs.
Definitely not. I mean, they did take a loss to the Oilers pretty recently, but Oilers are another team that's pretty scary to face. Even without McDavid, they score 5. That's crazy to me. So,
So because
they started the season really terribly, and
they fired their coach. We talked about it on this podcast.
Well,
but that's the thing is that
while I think McDavid was kind of hurt to begin too, and then they kind of reconnected because the coach now is like, I guess, buddies or played with Connor McDavid, so I think that kind of helped their resurgence.
Yeah, they definitely had a pre-existing relationship. Oh man, the playoffs are going to be insane. I'm going to, of course, have my heart in the bottom of my chest at times with the Stars playing, but it's going to be very entertaining. There's a lot of good teams going for it this year. The East is definitely good as well, but that West seems like murder's row. I don't know what to expect.
Because I feel like the Eastern Conference definitely has like the top tier teams with the Rangers. The Bruins are always pretty solid. The Panthers, but the wild card is just a big question mark. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked about Edmonton. We know Vegas, Dallas, the Avalanche. I mean,
Right.
it's a tough one. Vancouver, even though they just sputtered a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, but oh boy. But let's shift focus. We'll of course update y'all on that as we jump into the playoffs when the season wraps up in about a week and a half or so. I forget the exact start date to the playoffs, but we'll be playing games
It's
at
the
least for another
21st
7
for the
days.
playoffs.
Got you.
But our season ends on the 16th, it looks like. And I think some people end on the 18th or something. So
Yeah.
just that week. So, and then I think the 21st is a Sunday, which seems kind of weird to be starting on a Sunday. But
what can you do? But
maybe I read it wrong.
Yeah, you're good. From around that hockey to specifically some Dallas hockey, the Stars were in action this past week, playing 4 games since we last recorded. They played the Oilers the night that we did record, where we dominated 5-0. We don't need to touch on that one too much. It was a blowout. The Blackhawks game, though, in Chicago, 3-2 loss. I will say, so Tyler Seguin was out that game, and we were switching lines up. Wyatt Johnson was moved from his regular line with Jamie Benn and Stankoven, which I still say that's the best. Man, that's a beautiful line. I love watching them. He was moved over to the Marchment line, and there wasn't a lot of chemistry there. They couldn't really get it going. And we brought in a youngster, Maverick Bork, and he took Wyatt Johnson's position on that line, and he did all right. He did solid. He showed glimpses for sure. I like having him as that. What would that be? The 7th forward on the team, 8th forward, basically. If there's an injury or something, I'm very comfortable with him stepping in, but I don't like the lineup switches. And so it's a little shaky. Connor Bedard scores a power play goal to open the game. That it's Connor
Big
freaking
star.
Bedard, man. It was too easy for him, really. And then it was followed up a few minutes later where I forget the name of the Blackhawks player, but he's basically splitting the defenders down the middle of the ice in our third. Miro Heiskanen pulls him around. It's an immediate penalty or a delayed penalty, but it's followed up by that player making an incredible play as he's falling to the ice, passes it behind him. There's another Blackhawk player, and he just puts it into the empty net. Because the goalie was obviously occupied with the first on-rushing attacker. And so they jump out to a big lead, or an early lead, I should say, and we just can't make it up at that point. So the Blackhawks do take care of business in Chicago, which was a little disappointing to watch. But it was followed up the very next night against the Avalanche in Colorado, where we do get Tyler Seguin back. He ends up with 2 goals. One was an empty netter. But the team looked back in sync, and against the Avalanche, you have a chance to win the division, go for that division crown, and we're on the road on a back-to-back. It felt really good to see us kind of dominate that game. I mean, they do get was it 2 goals in the third period? I forget, but by the end of the second period, it was 5-2, and so they do get 2 back in that third period, but like I said, 5-2 at the end of the second. It felt like we were, hitting on all cylinders. So that was nice to see. And then we go ahead and play the Buffalo Sabres. Was that on Tuesday? It was on Tuesday. Where that game was a lot closer than it should have been. There was a disallowed goal Marchment had for a high stick. But it started real bad, too, because the Buffalo Sabres in the first period, I forget who scored. I think it was Dahlin who got their first goal. And their second goal, it goes in between Ottinger's legs where there was no hold there. It was like a magic trick. I don't know how it squeezed through the pads, but it did. And then at the end of the period, luckily it wasn't a goal. There was 3 seconds left. They have a face-off in our end. And they pass it around, and shoot it. And it looked like it went in. I'm pretty sure it went in, but it went in about a half second too late. So it started really slow for us. Luckily, we get back on track. I believe Wyatt scored a goal to tie it or take the lead. I forget. And then I think the final goal was Jason Robertson. I forget. But regardless, it started really poorly and it turned around pretty quickly. So, I mean, that was good to see the Stars at least recover and win that game, get those points. But, yep, that's the last week for the Stars.
Yeah, and with the Red Wings, we played pretty much how we should have. We beat the Sabres pretty easily. We lost to the Rangers in a pretty close game. Honestly, thought we should have won that. We looked pretty good. And biggest game of the week, lose to the Capitals. We started out really, really strong. We had like 20 shots on goal in the first period. We followed up in the second period, maybe 15 shots, and just nothing was hitting. I think we got a bunch of goalposts, just excellent saves from whoever the goalie is. I keep forgetting. Lindgren, I think. Charlie Lindgren, something like that. But yeah, we just couldn't get anything going. They scored two fairly middle of the second period, like with like 8 minutes left, and followed up maybe 2 minutes later with a second goal. So it was 2-0 by the end of the second period, and pretty much looked like 2-0 the entire game until the very end, where something happened and we actually scored a goal with maybe not even 2 seconds left. So it was not really a chance to win at all anyway. But I'm glad that we at least scored, so it wasn't just a complete shutout. That goalie, the Capitals goalie, has been playing really well. Charlie Lindgren, I want to say his name, but yeah, they're going to make a pretty solid chance, just making playoffs. And of course, with goalie saves, that's always going to be the most important part, because you can definitely score a bunch, but it's going to be a lot harder to save a bunch. So with him in goal, they've got a pretty good chance. We follow up coming up with the Penguins tonight. It's going to be a huge game again, which hopefully it's not the same result, because if we lose, I'm pretty sure we're just completely out of the playoffs. The game after that is Toronto, which I believe we'll probably lose, but I mean, it honestly depends on what Toronto does. What if they change up lineups, or, put in some younger players just to get some action going, because they've already clinched it. And then we follow up back-to-back games with the Canadiens, and pretty sure we should win both of them, but as we stated before, you just can't really discount them.
Yeah. And then, and I wanted to just throw this in about that Red Wings Capitals game. Man, y'all had 20 shots in that first period, and then y'all opened that second period up, and you couldn't shoot anything. I mean, like we talked about in the past, it seems like there are these spurts where the Red Wings are on it, and then they'll do a half of a period where they can't figure it out. They just seem like they lose their focus.
Can't get possession. They can't stop anything. They can't just do anything. Yeah.
And Ovechkin,
it's just a weird thing.
Ovechkin's a Hall of Famer, man, and he did Ovechkin things,
Ate the great.
It's real tough, yeah. But y'all do have a Hall of Famer on your end as well. And, that's just unfortunate for y'all. But like I said, it's possible. My week outlook for the Stars for their last 3 games, we got Winnipeg tonight. I think we're hosting Winnipeg as well. I don't know. I haven't seen any update on if any players are out. There could be some line changes as well. If there are no line changes, we keep it standard, we win that game. At home, Winnipeg is a good team. They've already locked up their playoff spot, but we win that game. And we follow that up hosting the Kraken and on Saturday. That'll be an interesting one, but I think there's no reason for us not to win again. I feel like I always say Stars win, Stars win, Stars win. But when you have the second most points in the league, that shows I'm kind of right a lot, right? And then we follow that up. So I'll say we win that one. And then we follow that up hosting the Blues on Wednesday the 17th. That game, I'm kind of expecting us to rest some players just for the playoffs. And the Blues are pretty much out of the playoff contention, but there's the smallest possibility that they sneak in. So I'll say the Blues are going all out, and I'll say we lose the last game of the season. So 2-1 for this upcoming week.
It's pretty crazy that the Blues are 89 points on the year, and everyone in the Eastern Conference has like 84, fighting for that last wild card spot. So
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of
No,
funny.
seriously. It's a tough division, man. And the fact that these teams have put up this many points in that heat of battle competition that's in the
Oh
West,
yeah,
it's impressive. But it also goes to show that the majority of the time when they play the East, it tends to go to the Western team's way. But hey, man, anything can happen in the playoffs. Seriously, it's going to be fantastic. So we'll for sure keep y'all abreast to that. Keaton, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we close this one out?
should be it. Should be it.
All righty. Well, hey, y'all take care. We'll keep y'all posted on all them hockey things happening. Peace out.
See you guys.